Let's talk about raiding a little bit. So, Tarithal, you don't raid, right? Like at all?
Yeah, that's correct. So Castle Nathria was really like the last raid that I did. I did a little bit of the one after that was at Sepulchre.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that
I
one
did.
not very good.
Yeah, but I was M plussing as a tank, and I was playing Disc Priest in Castle Nathria, which shout out Castle Nathria, that place owned. That was actually a really fun raid. But yeah, I work a lot. I work late hours. I don't typically, when I log in, I don't really like joining a raid and kind of being silent and just kind of doing my role. I like talking to people, and yeah, that's probably one of the reasons I actually like Aug Evoker. It's kind of like, the most you can do that. You're playing off your DPS, you're helping your healer, you're grouping things for your tank. I like those interactions of like playing off other people, which
Mhm.
I'm sure high end rating there's a lot of that, but
Do you think it holds you back not raiding at all? Not
I think
necessarily, not just gear wise, but I mean gear wise. I think is probably the largest thing, right?
I think less so nowadays. I don't really think there's a lot of I don't think there's a lot of gear that really matters from raid. If you just want to get 1% title or 0.1% title, I don't think you really need raid gear. That 6 item levels is not going to account. It's not going to make up for bad play.
What about earlier in the season? Do you feel the gap?
Not since the catalyst change. And we also we do like a friends raid, which Tettles is in, so he knows. But we go through on
It's just
heroic.
a heroic.
Yeah, it's just a heroic, but I mean like that's really enough. That's really all you need if you just want to get started with M plus for the season, and then once the catalyst comes out, that kind of carries the rest of it.
You also get like you get the Farok trinket as well. Any of the Farok trinkets that you kind of want, augury or the was it Rage Heart? Is that the name of the tank trinket? Also, if you want that, like that on heroic is good enough.
Dude, I want that tank trinket. That thing is so good.
I would have liked to have had the Broodkeeper weapon in season 1, and I never got that. So
that's kind of good.
Yeah.
I mean, do you think if they removed the upgrade system, you'd be more forced to raid? Because it seems like people have gone through this kind of process a couple of times. I remember Trell for a while was not raiding. JB has done it as well a couple of times where he's like, I'm done raiding. And then he starts raiding again. Growl, I think, did it a couple of times as well.
I'm not really against raiding, but yeah, I think if they got rid of the upgrade system, you'd be forced into it.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like doing at least heroic is the thing this season. Though is heroic is just really good. You just do heroic and you get like 90% of the benefits of doing mythic raiding, right? For M plus pushing.
Yeah,
it's really nice. Obviously, like at the end of the day, you'd rather have mythic fire act trinkets or whatever, and like, but aside from that, you can just eventually get everything you want from the vault. So I think it's in a really good place.
Also, the crafting system's only 3 item levels behind in some slots as well, which is, it's close enough. Like, yeah, I guess you could get a couple item levels here and there.
All right, how about re-rolling characters? You're somebody who's played, you said tank, healer, DPS, AUG. You've played it all. How do you decide like what you're going to main in any given season? Do you have a preference towards one of those roles or the other? And any advice as well for like what's easier climbing the ladder with?
For me, what I do is at the beginning of every season, I always have my vengeance and my preservation / augment ready. And so I basically just wait around until my friends want me to play something. And then I just end up playing that. But yeah, right now, like I'm playing tank and I'm playing aug, and I rarely get opportunities to play prez. But yeah, I pretty much just play the game to play with my friends at this point. And this season, people have just liked aug, so it just ends up being what I'm playing.
So how would this change if you don't necessarily have like an extensive network of friends that are like actively inviting you? Say you were inviting people, right? Say you were the person who was making those groups. How would that kind of affect your decisions, you think?
For me, I think I'd probably be playing tank still. I think tank and probably even healer. Those are the two easiest to get invited to in LFG. Especially if you're tanking, you're kind of controlling the dungeon, right? You have the route. Typically, you're the one making the calls. You probably would have the most success. And if you're talking to people, in Discord, which I would recommend doing if you're trying to pug your way up. Although there is some value to doing no comm keys, I think there is some value to that. But you definitely get to know people, and people get to know you.
Mhm.
And if you do a good job, people are probably more likely to try to play with you again.
What is the advantage of no comp keys? I'm trying to think. I actually don't know what it would be.
Well, we did some the other week. I was playing with Evade, and I think I was playing with Lynn, and the three of us had Pug 2 DPS just at LFG, and we were just slamming some 26s. I think I was tanking. I think Lynn was healing, and Evade was playing his Warlock. And you just kind of think about things that you wouldn't normally think about. If you don't have the communication there, you might set up pulls a little bit differently. You might try to communicate, how you're going to do things differently. You just fill in the gaps of things that maybe, comms normally would do the job for. And I think it's important to do that if you're just trying to think of like what could be the weak point in any specific poll.
Bust out the ping system.
I think it
Dude, pings
really
own.
shows. Yeah, pings are awesome.
Pings are
really
so good. Yeah, that system. I thought it was a meme when they first put it in. It's like, oh, League of Legends, but no, that system owns.
I think doing no voice keys like forces people to be extremely alert of their surroundings and what their jobs are. So like if you go into the triple caster pool in Everbloom and a no comms key, you get to like type out the pairs of kicks on each mob, and they have to just like be laser focused watching each other's play the entire time on the pool. And if they can pull that off, no voice, you're like, okay, these guys are gamers, like that stuff's really good to see.
Yeah, I think there's some benefits as well to, like everybody kind of thinking like, okay, what is everybody going to do, right? Like you kind of have to be predictable because you're not going to be able to communicate. So you have to like, okay, the Demon Hunter's probably going to want to kick first or whatever. Like, every single pull, this person's been stunning first or whatever. Like those sorts of things, you're thinking about them instead of getting lazy and autopiloting them. I think it's definitely, it's not, you shouldn't do no comms keys as push keys or anything like that. It's going to be worse, but it does exercise an important muscle. For sure.
I will say something in regards to rerolling characters. Something that's actually kind of important is obviously, like Tarithal was saying, tank and healer is the most desirable role. Kind of depending on the season as well, the meta is going to matter more or less, and your specialization might be in flux. And if you want to just play one main character, it's possible to do, but you just kind of need to be aware in advance that not all seasons are going to be the same in regards to what's the difficulty of getting into groups, what's the difficulty of being able to actually achieve maybe your goals, which could be something simple as portals. It could be something as extensive as like getting the 0.1 title. But knowing that like the meta is going to matter and it's kind of going to fluctuate season to season, I would say is kind of important.
Yeah, and there's not really a meta for like the first 2 weeks. Like people may have an idea of what's good, but people probably don't care as much.
I'd argue there still isn't a meta this season. I think it's still getting figured out.
This is definitely. I thought it was going to be a bit less dynamic after the mage buffs, but it seems like it's actually still been a bit in flux.
Yeah, I love it. I think it's I think this season's shaping up to be a really good one for like balance and that kind of stuff.